Hello and welcome back to Cleaved. We'll be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after Caldor and I forget his name. Gur? Huskarl Gur? I think that's his proper title. After they came and got you so that, you can go to the town and get some new clothes because, you kind of look like a bum right now. So, yeah. They're gonna take you shopping, it's I'm gonna say it's like a girl's day, but no. But yeah, you look like a hobo, so you need clothes. Anyway, so yeah, that's what's about to happen. And before that, though, you went on trial because they don't know where you are. As far as they're concerned, you're a naked mole rat. But yeah. So originally they were gonna execute you, but then somebody said, well, why don't we just keep him imprisoned in the spire, which I'm assuming is one of those towers that you're seeing right there in the distance. And then after Caldor, showed them your cell phone, Helm, I think that's his name, Helm, he's like, oh, that's interesting. This guy's interesting. He's a scholar. So he's like, hey, how about if, hear me out, if I take him and he works for me and then I poke him for knowledge to see if, he can give us anything of worth. And then they were like, okay, I guess, he can go free. He gets clothed. He gets a house. Well, not a house, a room in the castle. And he works for me. It's like, yay. But then somebody was like, no. We can't just leave him running around. So now he has, a babysitter. But yeah. Anywho, so without further ado, let us continue Cleaved and see what happens. Let's look at these new clothes that you're gonna get, other stuff that's probably gonna happen. While Gear scouts ahead, Caldor guides me on a personal level, telling me little details here and there about certain streets and businesses. When I was younger, I wasn't really allowed to venture into the city that much, unless I had a lot of personal guards dedicated to watching over me. But there were a few times that I was quick enough to sneak out before anyone was able to realize that I'd left. Me, Gur, and another friend of mine by the name of Skuld used to get up to all kinds of mischief over here. Oh yeah? So what would 3 rebellious wolves get up to? For instance, see that bakery? What about it? I take a look into the window and see the freshly baked goods on display. They look delicious, and if the queue at the door is anything to go by, they must be good. Our mothers were very strict on how much sugary treats we could have as pups, so if we snuck out, we would always visit the bakery. A really sweet old lady called Amma used to work here. She spoiled us rotten by giving us free cakes and had us try new recipes that she was working on. Even Gur cannot hide his excitement as I see his tail wag when I look forward. There was this one time when we had just finished studying for the day. We were due to only have a short break before we had to come home for a feast my father was hosting. Now, it was the first time that Skuld and his family were to join us for one of these meals. His mother had gone over to the top making sure that we were all clean and well groomed. So when we came down to our regular spot, we saw Amma had some fresh batch of cream cakes to try. We explained that we had to eat while we walked because we didn't have much time, and being the sweet lady that she was, she let us take them. He cannot but snicker between his words as the memory comes back to him. We didn't even get 3 steps away from the bakery before the big oaf manages to somehow trip over his own 2 feet. I cannot but laugh picturing such a large wolf falling over quickly. Huh. Oh my, did we get a scolding. We came back to the feast with Skuld. His chest all matted and stuck together with sugary cream pressed into it. There was simply no time to get him washed up. Good times. It certainly sounds like it. Say, what happened to this Amma person? She's still around actually. Her daughter took over the shop a few years ago, when she got a bit too old to manage it by herself. I should really go see her sometime soon. I haven't had much time since being made king and all. I nod as we round the corner and find ourselves in the same square that I had been in the other night. Despite supposedly being one of the quieter markets, it was still producing a lot of foot traffic. I continue to follow the two and take in the new surroundings. We're heading directly to one of the lanterns that I had first seen when I arrived in the district. I try to give it an inspection. Tailor goes to say something to Gyr. I try to eavesdrop, but a loud bump sound pulls my attention away. Following it, I see an older man leaving a particular area of the market. He's doing his best to run after a barrel that had been rolling across the courtyard. Looking at his posture, it's evident that the older man must have some kind of back issue that's preventing him from catching up with the barrel. Acting quickly, I take off, running quickly over to the barrel. I get ahead of it so that I am able to stop and allow the old man to catch up. Are you okay there, sir? Finally able to catch his breath, the old man stretches his back to look up at me. I have to take a step back as I am nearly caught by his horns. Thank you so much, young man. I'm afraid this buck ain't so young anymore. That's quite alright. Can I give you a hand to carry this back to where it belongs? He takes a second look at me. As his eyes adjust, he jumps ever so slightly as he sees who I am. Oh my, you're that mysterious fellow who was put in front of the council. I can tell that he is a bit intimidated. My reputation precedes me, I see. I am, and I do apologize if I've given you a fright there. It's alright. I just wasn't expecting to see you of all people. I pick up the barrel and carefully raise it up. It's heavy, but I can manage it well enough to follow through. Well, the council did reach a decision that allows me to have some freedoms, but it was in exchange that I would do what I could to help this kingdom. This is just as good as a start as any, for me. It surprises me to see him taken aback as he is, but he leads me back over to his stall. I set down the barrel and obey and watch him attach a set of straps to the row of barrels. That shouldn't be going anywhere now. Thank you again, young man. It isn't a problem, sir. You take care now. As I turn around and begin to leave the area, I can feel the amount of eyes on my back. It feels different to how it did on my first day inside these walls, though. It doesn't feel like a harsh pressure like it did then. Now, it just feels like people with genuine curiosity are trying to look into me and my decisions. And what might you be doing, human? I turn around to see who raised the question to my actions, only to be met by an unfamiliar face. I take a second to study this person, only to see they were a very large and portly wolf. Oh, I don't know if you happened to catch a glimpse of it, but there was a barrel that was rolling across the way. I just stepped in to stop it and return it to its rightful owner. I can't quite put my finger on it, but the more that I look at this wolf, the more that I think that he stands out amongst the others I've met so far. I do apologize, but I haven't seen you before. I'm a bit confused as to who you are. I am Huskarl's Schalt, servant to the king. Oh, right. Now I know. You've been mentioned to me before. Last I checked, the council made it clear that you were only to be out with an assigned escort. I've lost a slight bit as he continues to scold me. Thankfully, it's quickly interrupted by the sound of some footsteps coming closer. Before I realize it, both Tailor and Gyr are on top of me. Where the hell did you go? Supposedly the half-pint ran to help a fellow out with some of his inventory. By the gods, did you happen to see that, or are you just... It takes a moment for the wolf to register who is standing before him. Schalt? Hey, always slow to realize. How are you, your highness? Better for seeing you, brother. How are you on this fine day? I am good. Personally enjoying the quiet that we're having in the city today. Using it to catch up on some much-needed paperwork too. Well, I am glad to hear that you got a day to yourself to enjoy. What might you three be up to today? Work on behalf of Lord Hyam, as it goes. As I am sure you are aware, he's agreed to take the human under his wing at one of the factories, but even Brynn here isn't exempt from Hyam's dress code. Schalt puts his hands on his belly and lets out a good chuckle before reflecting on the news. I hope you like being all dressed up all fancy, human. I'm never going back to wearing those tight shirts. To be fair, I'd much rather be dressed fancy than to have my chest dressed in cream cake. The smile is wiped from his face, and Tailor can't help but to erupt into laughter at my roast. You dick, is that seriously the first thing that you told him about me? Pretty much. Unbelievable. Come now, Schalt. It's just simply for teasing. Listen, Gur is back from a very long mission, and it's been an even longer time since the three of us had had an opportunity to do something together. How about you take off and get those reports done, and come find us as soon as it is, and we will go out for a pint. On me, of course. He finishes it with a wink. Schultz fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Now that is an idea that I can get behind. I will see you soon then, brother. With a nod, the two separate. It's not long after that they part that we finally make it to the tailor. I'm pleasantly surprised by the size of the shop, and I am very interested in what types of clothing I may find once I step inside. As I watch him walk away, Caldor gives the shop's door a knock. A few seconds go by, and I hear the sound of a latch turning for the doors to open. I'm all the more surprised to see a rather short wolf answer the door. King Caldor? Darling, how are you? It's good to see you too, Selma. How is the king's best tailor doing this fine day? Oh, you're just saying that. Of course I am. I'm literally the one who just said it. God's this boy. Always with such a sense of humor. Now, come. I've already cleared the shop for you. Gur proceeds to go first, standing next to the doorway and placing his spear onto the ground, with the tip raised up to the sky. He'll be standing guard, and after you. I thank him as I step through the doorway and immediately take in the amount of fabrics and clothing that decorate the many walls of the shop. Oh, wow! Now I know Haim told me that I'd be working on a special client today, but I had no idea that this is what you look like. It startles me how quiet she is as she effortlessly sneaks past and circles around me. She then begins asking a bunch of questions. So, what are you, honey? I have never seen anyone like you. Are you big for your species? Compared to the king here, you certainly don't look it, but who am I to judge? You're also quite on the skinny side, aren't you, darling? Not that I'm complaining, as it's gonna make my job a lot easier adjusting the fits. Caldor, what do you have him on food-wise? I look to the wolf in a mild panic, as I was not expecting this many questions. Selma, this is Brian, and he is a human. I'll leave him to answer some of the other questions, but I will share that we're supplying him with the same food that we all eat from the cooks in the castle. Hello there. And yes, everything Caldor said is correct. I'd say that I'm at average, if not a little above average. Last I checked, I was 6 foot. Foot? I don't really know what that means, honey, but I'll take your word for it. As for you being on the skinny side, don't worry about that for long. Those cooks know how to make a very hearty meal. She gives me a smile as she proceeds to walk over to a more open section of the shop, giving me instructions to follow her. Now, those clothes that you've got on are clearly too baggy for you, so if you wouldn't mind placing those to the side for me, I'd like to get some accurate measurements. I blush a slight bit, but do as she requests, setting my coat, shirt, and trousers off to the side. It takes me a second to untie my shoes, but they are quickly kicked off as well. Sensing my shyness, she does an amazing job of getting the measurements done as quickly as possible. Okay, so... As it turns out, she already has a pair of trousers in my size. She goes to fetch them quickly so that I can cover up my half-naked body. She then takes out some pen and paper and makes a record of the sizes. Now, I have some time on my hands to create some more clothing for you very soon, so take this pair in the meantime. I'll have more other garments delivered to the castle for you. She takes me over to a section of tops. Now, most of those that come through my door have enough fur on them that they never have to have some form of top to keep warm. You, however, almost definitely need one. She says that last bit as she looks me up and down. After she travels through the racking with her fingers, she pulls out one that she seems to be a particular fan of. Ooh, this. The wolf goes to tell me that this specific shirt is a dual-layered tunic. It comes with a white linen shirt underneath to give it a little extra warmth and some depth, while the outer layer is a forest green color with great accents accompanying it. She convinces me to try it on. Although the long sleeve rolled past my hands, I am very satisfied with how it looks in the shop's mirror. You look like Link. You just dressed up like Link. Now, darling, I'll obviously adjust the sleeves for you, but give them a grab and pull them up like this. Salma grabs one sleeve and pulls high enough that the wrist cuff is just resting on my elbow. I do the same to the other and give myself another look in the mirror. Now this is where my dual-layered goes into effect. Depending on the time of the year of the climate, you'll be able to roll these sleeves up however you want it so that you'll be comfy no matter the weather. Salma, this is amazing. Oh, I'm not done yet, honey. I'll begin work on the adjustments to that tunic very shortly, aside from getting it to fit you right. I'll need to add the royal seal to it so that you know and the people know that you are currently allied to the royal council. Caldor, have you given the boy a cloak? No, I have. Then a cloak you shall have. Caldor, take the boy into that parlor. I just finished brewing tea. As quick as ever, she shifts upstairs, taking the garments with her. I look back to Caldor and he waves his paw for me to follow him. I quickly take a seat in the parlor area that Salma had mentioned. He then grabs 2 cups from the side and pours both of us some tea. I probably should have warned you about Salma before we arrived. Don't get me wrong, I would have appreciated it, but she's lovely. We both chuckle and take a sip of our drinks. It's pleasant and not at all overpowering. I kind of want to see if we can pick up the blend from somewhere. We're probably gonna be here for a little while. Yeah, I think so too. Something tells me that the seamstress of yours has a habit of getting carried away with big projects, eh? Oh, you wouldn't believe it. Salma loves her fashion. Chaim actually financed her entire venture into setting up her own store before he was even part of the council. She's made his money back and more since, especially after introducing her as the newly appointed personal tailor to the royal family. Oh wow. So does that mean that she made a huge majority of her outfits? Yes, you'd indeed be correct. Damn, she must have done a real good job. I have to know, how long did she spend on Njord's outfit? Not to knock the rest of you, but he was certainly the most outstanding one of the lot of you. Just the one? It took over a week just to prepare the damn thing. Oh god. He goes over the ridiculous preparations that she had to take in order to make sure that Njord's outfit was made to perfection, and we can't help but laugh. You know, I really like that color that you picked for the tunic. Oh yeah? Is there any particular reason why? Salma makes all her dyes by hand, and she sources the ingredients to make them from other local businesses across Ockheimer. She actually happens to get a particularly nice dye from my favorite flower. You have a favorite? Really? Now, I know my dashing good looks and rugged appearance might make you think otherwise, but I can be quite suave when I need to be. You'll have to show me more of that side sometime. I'm curious what the smooth-talking king sounds like. Oh, hush you. But back to what I was saying. You see the blue color my garments have? Salma gets it from her fabrics from the humble bluebell. Oh, that sounds pretty. Is there a particular reason why you like that one so much? Coincidentally, it was my mother's favorite. She had such good taste in botanicals. Do you have any family in the picture? Not in regard to my parents, no. My mother died of an illness when I was younger. As you probably have been able to surmise, my father recently passed away. That's why I have taken the throne. When my father was busy with his diplomatic meetings and various other events, I would always rely on my uncle to be there for me. I guess you could say that he's always been like a second father to me. The two of you seem really close from the few interactions that I've seen so far. But now that you say that though, I am curious about one more thing. Oh yeah? What would that be? Schalt and Gur. What's the connection between you guys? I've noticed that you keep calling each other brother. Hey, no. We're not actual brothers. Those two are a little older than me, but their families have been strong figures in the woven community since before they were born. From a young age, they have both expressed interest in doing some form of work for the royal family, be that serving on the council, in the military, so long as there was a place for them. They've more than earned their place since, but my uncle thought that it would be a wise idea for them to oversee my personal training. I was kept separate from a lot of training activities when I was younger. That's not to say that I didn't get certain things like education or anything, but when it came to stuff like combat, certain members of the then council intervened in my participation. They worried that it wouldn't look good if the future heir to the throne was injured before he was ready. But Tailor, not wanting me to fall behind, set up a training group just for me. So those two would go off on learn from the professionals, then come back and teach me the things that they've learned. It's thanks to those two that I know how to fight, use weapons. Gur even taught me how to hunt. It wasn't always easy though. They used to be much bigger than me back in the day, so it made the ass kickings that I would get training be even more brutal. But it was worth it in the end. When the council agreed that I was finally ready, I felt that I had already cemented myself in the pack. Your uncle seems like a really smart guy, Caldor. I'm happy to hear that you have someone like that looking out for you, even if he did literally throw you to the wolves. So I'm guessing hanging around with these two so often must really brought you all together. Yeah, we've been inseparable since. Again, while they're not technically my brothers, we're so close that I might as well consider them family. It's at this moment that I finish my tea and I set my cup to the side. Caldor does the same very shortly after me. How about you? Any family back home? No, not really. I never actually met my parents. I ended up bouncing around a lot as a kid, going from place to place before I was finally able to settle down in some quaint university town in the countryside. I'm sorry to hear that, Brynn. I can't imagine that being easy for a child. Don't worry about it too much. I was a resilient kid after all. Well, that much is clear. How about you tell me what this university town is? I go on to tell Caldor what I remember about my life in that town. The two of us share a silent agreement not to pry into the details my mind is hazy on. Instead, we enjoy our ability to talk in private about the nicer things in our lives. Oh, so the town itself is used to support the scholars who are living there for a time? Exactly, and we bring interest with us, which is beneficial to the business owners there too. It's not the same for everyone, but I'm someone who tries to support local businesses whenever possible. The coastal town's local trade spots would receive plenty of me in exchange for coffee, clothes, whatever I really needed. I see. Were your people happy with this exchange? You're always going to get a handful of people that will complain about exchange like this, but a lot of the time that's only a very small minority. The people I interact with on a frequent basis were more than happy to have me and my colleagues living there. Huh. Is something the matter? You just got me thinking is all. Even though I'm the king, it just feels like there isn't a lot that I can do right now because of how bad the political climate could be with other nations. I've been toying with multiple different ideas on how we can go about brokering some kind of peaceful agreement between our people. Are you thinking about opening up one of the universities? Like, if things go well, would it be possible that someone not from these lands could come here as a scholar? I'm certainly not opposed to it. I'm thinking that it could be a way of easing the idea of opening our borders to different kingdoms for them to come and experience the woven society. But at the back of my mind, I feel as if potential drawbacks of this idea could outweigh the positives. See, I'd like to help where possible, but I haven't been really told why these tensions are so high. I know that there are some nations that are concerned over you taking the throne, but that surely can't be the only reason you guys are nearly going to war, right? He goes to say something, but he stops himself and his mouth is hanging agape for a slight moment. He must be seriously contemplating on whether or not he's in a position to share such details with me. Before I'm given a chance to hear it though, a loud shout echoes from the floor above. It's finished! Sama comes down the stairs as fast as her legs will allow her to anyway. She has my clothes draped over her arm and she rushes them over to drop them into my awaiting hands. Please go try these on immediately. I want to make sure that I've got the right adjustments. I'm shoved over to the fitting room once again, and I strip back down to my undergarments to put the new outfit on. The trousers are the perfect length and the tunic, while a little baggy, was just how I liked it. I step out and walk in front of the mirror to see the full effects for myself. To both Sama and Calder's interest, I'd say the outfit as a whole looks really good. I must say, I simply outdid myself here. I can certainly attest to that. You wear those clothes well, Brynn. Thank you. This already feels a lot better. I'm unable to move the smile from my face as I walk over to the front door to grab my shoes. As I walk back over to the two, Selma grabs a stool and climbs to it to get to about the same height that I am. I raise my arms for her instructions. I put them out to the sides. She then puts on the finishing touches. Caldor comes over with a large black cloak and carefully drapes it around my shoulders, and Selma connects the metallic latch around my neck to hold it in place. The fur on the back of the cloak already begins to work its magic by warming me up from the shop's cool climate. Yet, just as I think she's done, she grabs a leather fixture and straps it over my shoulder to wrap around my body. Now, with this leather brace, not only are you going to have a bit of extra protection on you, there is multiple pockets on it for you to store your valuables. This is amazing. Thank you so much, Lady Selma. Oh, please, darling. I'm not fancy enough for a title like that. You just enjoy my work, and if you need more, you know who to come to. Now, shall we discuss payment? I give her a nod and return to the parlor, grabbing the pouch that I set down previously. We decide that I'll need more than just one set of clothing, so she begins a new order to prepare more over the next few days. It's during this time that she also gets a look at my particular choice of undergarments and socks. She must be curious about their design and what they are used for, so I explain to her the functions of each piece. I see. We don't want those dainty paws of yours to be damaged now, do we? I'm confident that I'll be able to get those organized for you, Brynn. For now, enjoy the clothing that you have, and I will have one of my boys deliver these to you at the castle when they're done. After she finishes taking my final measurements, me and Caldor make our way to the door. We thank her once again as we step out to see the ever-patient Gyr. Thank you for standing guard, old friend. Our business here for today is done. I'd like to return to the castle as soon as possible so that you can be debriefed, and so that I can give you that long overdue recovery. Gyr simply nods at the order and begins to march back through the market square. Thanks for joining us today, Caldor. I know that you didn't have to, but I do appreciate the extra company to get all of this sorted. It isn't a problem, Brynn. I actually really enjoy our chat. Me too. I take a step closer to Gyr, look up at him, and give him a soft whisper. I know you're only here because you've been ordered to, but thank you for keeping watch, Gyr. He looks down at me and gives me a reassuring nod. It's hard to tell what he's really feeling with that mask obscuring his eyes, though. However, before we could get a chance to enjoy the moment, the two wolves seem distracted by something. Looking towards the town, I see people in the market square shifting about quite rapidly. How come everyone is running? If it's what I think it is, it's not going to be good. Gyr, go on ahead. I'm gonna take Brynn someplace. The wolf is cut off by the sound of the trumpet clearing off in the distance. Ah, damn it. Caldor, what's happening? We use that specific sound for when a riot is about to break out. Brynn, listen closely. He turns his head back to Gyr and gives him a nod, to which I watch the masked wolf run away. Go back to Selma's and stay in her shop. It'll be safe. I'll come back to get you as soon as we have this fight under control. You got that? Don't worry about me. Just go and get the situation under control. He gives me a nod before he turns on his heels and chases after his companion. Now left on my own, I turn to do as the wolf says and quickly make my way back to the shop. Though it would appear that my luck is unfortunately taking a turn for the worse. Despite doing my best to get back to the shop, the front entrance is being swarmed by a crowd of civilians. It seems like they were either trying to leave the district all at once or demanding more information from the guards as to what's going on. Either way, I'm stuck in the middle of it, and the claustrophobia starts to set in. Out of nowhere, someone tugs the back of my cloak just hard enough to shift my balance, and I tumble into the alleyway behind me. Well, ain't this a lovely bit of deja vu? Frick? Rather quickly, the stranger forces me against the wall, a paw covering my mouth. You really gotta learn when to keep quiet around me. Or is this just another attempt to have my hand in your mouth? I lick his paw, prompting him to pull it back and shake it. Oh, that's so mature. Believe me, if I wasn't so happy to see you right now, I'd be giving you a ball ache over how immature your flirting is. We both stare at each other, quickly letting out a chuckle as we relax for a moment. Well, I'm glad to see you're holding up okay. Where'd you get this fancy new pieces? I just picked it up from that shop over there. Salma's? The really fancy boutique? Damn, I knew they were setting you free, but I didn't think that they'd be looking after you so well too. Yeah, some of the council weren't too happy with me going free, but after Heim proposed me working for them, a lot of them fell into agreement with them. Hold it there a moment. They're putting you to what? To work. I told them about my past and got around to showing them a device from my homeland. Heim was the most interested, since why he wanted me to come work for him, to see if my brain can be of any use to him and all that. Damn, talk about walking into the wolf's den. Wait, what are you doing back in the city so soon? I thought that you took off. Nah, not really. The guards can't really do much when you hit the outer stretches of the forest. Seriously? You ran that far away? Yeah, at that point, they're officially in the wild. Let's just say that people aren't as friendly with them outside the kingdom as they would be inside of it. Interesting. That's why a lot of us rebel folks set up safe houses out there. I've also got a few set up in the shantytown just outside of the walls. The guards know the residents of that area aren't the biggest fans of the crown, so they don't tend to cooperate as much. Even then, there is a strong chance that you'll be left alone if they can't find you. So, is that where you went back to after the search died down? That's right. I went to that quaint little tavern that my friend Grim works at. You remember I mentioned him, right? Yeah, he's your smart friend that might know something about my kind, isn't he? Hitting the nail on the head. Glad to see your noggin wasn't too scrambled by them. I didn't want him to feel bummed out, so I tried to downplay the treatment that I received for waking up in that cell. Believe me, it sounded worse than it actually was. I see the fox's expression drop. I guess that didn't work as well as I had hoped. Wait, that still doesn't answer my question. What are you doing back? Isn't it really dangerous for you right now? You know, being one of the most wanted criminals in the whole kingdom? Well, if you must know, I actually came back to get you. Seriously? Well, duh. I promised you that I would, didn't I? You did. I just wasn't expecting it to be so soon after everything. Well, normally I wouldn't have come back to get you as soon as I had. But after I found out about the council's decision to give you some form of freedom, I was wondering whether they'd set you up for accommodation. The timing worked out perfectly. I had my ears to the ground and found out that there was a huge riot going on today. My plan was to use that to my advantage. While all the guards were distracted, I would see how far the sewer could get me to you, and then we'd sneak out. Speaking of which, you didn't happen to tell them about the sewer system now, did you? My mind flashes back once more to the ominous threat that he gave me long ago. Don't worry, I remembered. I lied to them and said that we used the rooftops to evade capture. Good job, good job. He lowers his eyebrows and I begin to worry less for my safety. Yes, this is perfect. They're gonna be preoccupied with this riot for hours, so we can slip away with no issues. Wait, hold on now. Where are we gonna go? We're gonna take you to Grimm's, get you all acquainted, see if we can pick his brain for some knowledge of your kind. Maybe we can get that overdue drink in. But what about the guards? Fraser, even you said that there's not a guarantee that they won't come for me. I'm fully known to them now. He ponders for a moment and lets out a sharp exhale. I have a plan in mind, but I need both you and Grimm present for me to go over it with you and see if it'll work. I wouldn't waste your time with a dangerous plan if I didn't think that it had any chance of working. Besides, with the trouble that they have on their hands right now, we'll have plenty of time to sneak out and get you back before anyone suspects a thing. I know, and you haven't given me any reason to distrust you either. If anything goes wrong, are you sure that we'll be able to get back here? I don't want to risk anyone else getting hurt after that whole shitstorm that was my arrival here. I promise. Then you take the lead. I'm a little nervous, but if there's even a slight chance that someone knows about humans, then I have to try. As I watch the fox prop his head up, I raise my hands and get a grasp of my own cloak. I feel the extending fabric form into a hood and lift it up to obscure my face. Come with me. The Vulpine leads me over to another alleyway. He informs me of the specific sewer path that we're going to be taking. Supposedly, it's one of the only pathways that directly connects to the outer layer of the walls and the shantytown just outside of it. As he pops the grate and allows me to go first, I climb down the ladder. This time I go in with a greater peace of mind and try not to do a repeat of last time. As soon as my feet hit the solid ground, I wait for the fox to get down here. It's good to see that you're learning, pal. He lands ever so gracefully and continues to lead me through the sewer paths. After coaching me through the correct turns, he jumps until we make it out of the other side. Sweet freedom. You can say that again. Sweet freedom. I let out a quiet chuckle while Fraser reseals the grate, and the two of us begin to walk after the shantytown. I only had a chance to glimpse it when I first got here, but now I can see it all in its full detail. While the majority of the homes and businesses were damaged or neglected in some way, they were still fully usable and maintained by the residents who used them. Are there a lot of people who live outside the walls? Yeah, there are. This town circles the entire kingdom. There's plenty of homes and businesses that cater to the people who want to live away from the crown, but would still like a community around them. Damn, this must be quite a busy townstead. Say, Phrase, how long has your friend had this tavern? Oh, I couldn't tell ya. He and his partner have had that place since before I was born, pal. Wow, I'm guessing it's quite the popular little tourist spot. I may be a bit biased here, but I'd say that it's one of the best taverns in the kingdom. It's a bonus that the place is really friendly to strangers. He shoots me a wink at that last part as we continue to walk the street, taking turn after turn until we finally reach a well-kept cottage-style building. It's situated in front of an expensive tree line and immediately stands out from the other buildings that decorate the street. The warm lights in the interior of the building act as a warm welcome as opposed to an attempt to stand out and show off. There she is. Get ready. She? Oh, the tavern. He looks over at me and smiles as we get closer to the building. I can notably hear the sound of music getting louder and louder with each passing step. Fraser can't help but pick up the pace. I watch the fox rush with excitement and quickly try to match his speed. As we make our way through the door, Fraser shoves it open with a harsh push. I'm home! He shouts sarcastically as we step inside the tavern. There is a few cheers and some hellos from some of the patrons as they see the fox strut in. Behind the counter, I can see a large horse who has just put on a warm smile upon seeing the fox. Fraser, my boy! A loud voice cuts across the room, and within seconds I watch my friend get rushed by a goat? Grim! It took him a moment to realize who had run up and grabbed him, but upon feeling the horns pressed on his body, he quickly returned the hug. Oh, so this is... Oh, hello! The old goat takes a second glance upon hearing my voice, looking to speak to me. Good gods! He nearly falls over upon seeing me, as I don't think that he was expecting it. You're the fellow the guards arrested the other day! I am indeed. Apologies in advance if it causes any startle. He lets go of the fox and runs over to me, pulling me into a hug. I'm taken aback from the sudden openness, but I appreciate the warm gesture. I look over to Fraser, but he just mouths over to me that this is just something he does. Not wanting to be rude, I return the gesture and feel his hair brush up against my face. Honey, come quick! This is him! The horse puts down the glass he was cleaning and makes his way over to us, his eyes spaced a little wider. Really? No jokes there, Fraser? Is this really him? Grim, go, Hermie. Meet the human, Brynn. Oh gosh, where are my manners? Brynn, I'm Grim. Zalher? Zahler? And this handsome stallion next to me is my husband, Gail Hermie. You can just call me Guy. It's a lot simpler. Grim turns and gives him a bit of a flabbergasted look to his partner. What? I was never the fancy type, and you knew that the second that you met me. Hun, we are literally meeting the person who saved our son from being arrested by prison guards. The gods only know what they would have done to him if they'd caught him. I think you could at least give the human a proper introduction now. Huh? I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that? Oh, me wanting my partner to properly introduce himself? No. The bit just before that. Oh, about freight. Okay, Grim. Guy, is there any chance that you can go fix me and Brynn a pint of honey mead? We have some business to discuss, so we're gonna get comfy. He shoots daggers at the goat, who blushes in embarrassment. Of course. Come on, honey. He grabs the horse by the arm and yanks him away. Fraser does the same to me and takes us to a table in the corner of the bar, far out of earshot of the other patrons. So, I have so many questions. I can't help but blurt it out, unintentionally cutting him off. I don't like telling people about them because it risks putting them in danger. So any questions about my dads that relate to me, I ain't answering. He gives me a stern look and I take this as my sign to not push for more information. Okay, that's fair. If it relates to you, feel free not to answer. But do you think that I can ask you about how those two came about and set up shop here? Well, it's a little personal, but... Oh, the days of my youth. I watch Fraser jump as the surprisingly stealthy goat is able to sneak up on us and pull up a chair. I'd be more than happy to tell you. The Vulpine pulls a face, knowing at this point that there's no way that he can stop the old goat from going off on a rant. I am not originally from the lands of Caledonia, actually. I hail from the land across the sea. I came here quite a few years ago after King Fimbleventer had gone on an expedition to make contact with some of the villages along the kingdom's coastline. Back home, I learned cartography from some of the finest cartographers this side of the continent. It was actually the king who had offered me the job to work alongside the royal family as the Woven clan's cartographer. Oh, wow. Have you traveled a lot over the years? Oh, me and Guy have gone all over. He was a traveler when we first met, you know? He got a job assisting with deliveries from businesses in the city to a certain resident in the castle. Oh, really? Don't suppose you got any tips for working with them, do you? Stretch beforehand. Make sure that you're on time, especially if you're working for Chaim. Guy shouts over to us from the corner of the bar as he pulls another draft. He carries 2 mugs over, sets one down in front of me and then the other in front of Fraser. He goes over to his husband and gives him a kiss on the forehead. I'll hold the floor down. You enjoy the company. Try not to bore them too much, though. Grim can only laugh at his partner's statement before turning back to our conversation. He went on to tell us that in his youth he worked alongside the council. He created maps and guides that helped set up trade lines and gained a navigational sense of different villages and cities that neighbored the kingdom. Grim was seen as a valuable member of the society for the simple reason that they were able to expand and improve the condition of the kingdom. In the time that I spent working with the council, I had numerous instances where I bumped into Guy. We formed a close bond and were inseparable. We'd had lunch together, talk about the places that we traveled to, and eventually, we'd fallen for each other. Though, despite my love for my job, I could only do it for so long as my body was able to maintain itself. Unfortunately, while working for the council, I injured my back pretty badly. Me trying to push the limits of my older age did not go too well. He lets out a light chuckle before patting his belly. It's also why I don't have my slim physique anymore. Fraser can't help but roll his eyes a tad as he sees the goat getting lost in the details. But from the years of work, I saved up quite the pretty penny. Thanks to my early retirement due to my limitations, I tried to think of what I wanted to do since I was essentially a free man. And that's when Guy suggested that we open up our own little business. In our years of traveling, we always wanted to stay at taverns and inns and loved the feelings of the atmosphere and community provided us. So when we began to look for a big enough building to accommodate a dream and found this humble abode in the old town, we took it right away. We've never looked back since. Business has been good, if a little quiet with the recent events, but we never have to worry about trouble thanks to our lovely boy over here. He hides his blush. Fraser grabs his stein and takes a large swig from his drink. And given that the guards don't really bother us, we can still keep our doors open to visitors, like you for example. I can't help but smile as his welcoming tone. I now take my turn to try some of the mead. Oh wow, this is really good. I go back and take a second swig, feeling it go down smoothly. Well, I am very glad that you're enjoying our brew. It is a passion project of Guy's, but that's enough about us. Brynn, I would love to hear your story, if you're happy to share. Grim, that's actually why we're here. Oh? Brynn here is a human. So far, everyone that he's met hasn't been able to identify his kind or where he came from. We're wondering if we can pick your brains for a bit. If you know anything about it, then maybe I can even go as far as to help him get home. I see. Human, you said. He gets up from his table and walks away, pacing back and forth, trying to think of the right words. I've never actually seen one in person, but the word does sound familiar on some strange level. I've traveled to many lands, all with such rich history and folklore. I'm certain that I must have found something somewhere on it. I've documented almost everything that I learned in various books and journals. That sounds promising. Do you know which book that you used for? I'm sorry, it was so long ago that I can't really recall the exact one. I try not to let my disappointment show, but I hold onto the little optimism that I have left, provided the goat is successful. Grim turns and looks over to me, the same smile still on his face. I'll need to check my study first, see what I have on hand. Brynn, they have you staying in the castle right now, do they not? Yeah, the king has me staying in one of the private rooms. It's got books upon books in there. The one with the studies? Damn, he's putting you up. I'm sorry your initial plan didn't work, my boy. What I can do is ever so slightly tweak it and possibly have something in mind for the both of you. He then turns to me, locking eye contact with me as he gave me a promise. Brynn, you saved my son, and I will never forget that. You can rest assured that I am going to help you with this. Now, I'm going to need some time to get through my books to see if I can find anything that can help you. In the meantime, Brynn, keep up the good behavior and see just how many freedoms you can get while inside the castle. If they give you free roam of the castle facilities, you'll find a library there, and I know for a fact that some of my books are still there. If you can find any with my name, please don't hesitate to grab them and go through them. We've got a great debt to repay you, but for now, how about another round? I smile at the offer and certainly don't refuse it. The second the stein is brought over to me, I take a large sip and continue enjoying the company, now being reinvigorated with an airtight plan. As we sit and talk, Guy finishes with his customers and brings a round over for himself and his partner. The doors open once again and I see a hooded fellow step inside, walking over to another side of the bar. Bear with me for a second. The fox finishes his drink and seemingly follows the stranger over to a different table. You two are lovely. Why, thank you, lad. We're a little unorthodox, but I couldn't ask for a better family. How did that come about, if you don't mind me asking? You know, you two and Fraser and all. We'll let Fraser tell you the specifics in his own time. It is a very closely guarded secret that he doesn't just tell anybody. But what I can tell you is that us being his dads wasn't always official. He used to be this cute little street urchin. We didn't know much about him at first, but we noticed that he was a little scrawnier than some of the other kids around his age. Ever so often, he'd pass by our tavern, snooping on what the guests were eating. We figured that he wasn't getting enough to eat, so we started to make extra for him and invited him in for a free meal. But I'll never forget the day that we found him. The poor boy was roughing it most nights, and after that, we took him in. We made it very clear that he was free to leave whenever he wanted. If no one else would help him, we made sure that he knew that we'd always be in his corner. Before we knew it, we were taking care of him like he was one of our own. I still can't forget about the first time that he called you Dad. He leans in during this part, and I'm already anticipating some humor to come from the horse. It's a Lover's Day, and a lot of our regulars know Fraser by this point, as he helps out with the paperwork from the shop. Order lists, income, you name it. The lad is great with numbers, so he sat at the bar with his own little world pen in paw. Grimm's serving with the other, and while Grimm is doing his best to salvage the exchange, he turns to Fraser and asks, "Fraser, can you add berry cider to the drink list, please?" That boy, in the sweetest voice you've ever heard, goes, "Sure thing, Dad." The two of them can't help but chuckle. They explain to me that the young fox desperately tried to correct himself, much to the many oohs and ahs of their patrons. Honestly, you'd think he's red now. Swear that shade of crimson is burned into my eyes. As Grimm wipes a tear from his eye, the fox comes back over, puzzled as what we were talking about. "Oh, nothing. Your dads are just telling me some very interesting childhood stories about you." I shoot him a wink and his face immediately drops. "Ha ha. Okay, well, it was lovely seeing you both again. We need to make a move." "Oh, already?" "Yeah, I was speaking to one of my contacts just now. They're nearly got the riot under control, and if they do that before you're back, we're screwed. So, come now. Let's go." Not wanting to waste time, I turn to his parents and thank them for their hospitality and efforts to help me. I quickly stand with the fox and we rush out the door. We lift our hoods once again to blend in. We return through the same tunnel, and after a bit of sneaking, we're able to make it to the alleyway where he initially found me. "Calder will probably be back here before you know it, so I probably should take off." "Yeah, you probably should. Wouldn't want to risk you getting caught." "You remember what I said about my dads, right?" "Yeah, I do, and it goes without saying that I will honor the secret and take it to the grave with me." He looks at me, contemplating his next move for a second before deciding to quickly pull me in for a hug. "Thanks." He lets me go and gives himself a quick stretch. "Maybe I'll tell you about it sometime, but let's focus on the task at hand for now. Take care of yourself, Brynn." As Fraser bids me farewell and runs away, I leave the alleyway and walk down a little to Salma's Tailor. I look around and see that the coast is clear, so I take that moment to stand at the front of the shop, waiting for time to pass. It's not long after I hear a series of heavy footsteps approaching me. "Brynn!" I turn in the direction of the voice and see Calder dash over, with gear not too far behind him. "There you are." "I'm sorry if I gave you both a scare." "Damn right. We came back here a little while ago, and imagine our surprise when we questioned Salma and found out that you never came back." Thinking on my feet, I come up with an explanation. I tell him that the actual roadway to get back to the Tailors was closed off by the guards. We're trying to ensure no more protesters could slip by and make it worse. There was an alleyway just a short walk away from here. It was walled off and I just wasn't bothered the entire time I was there. That, and I figured that it would be safer than just wandering the streets. He sighs, but I think my explanation was convincing enough. "Okay. Next time, explain to the guards your situation, and that you're acting on direct orders from myself. If they give you any trouble, just show them the crest that Salma stitched into your clothing." Keeping his stoic appearance, Gear lets out a slight cough to indicate that he is still there. Calder looks to him, and the two exchange a nod, reminding themselves of what the next steps were. "Brynn, I hope that you had a pleasant day, but after things that we have to deal with, we're ready to call it and get some much-needed rest. We'll be returning to the castle now." "Right behind you." Our second attempt at returning home went much better than our previous, with no interruptions or distractions. We arrive at the castle gate just as the sun was setting, awaiting the gates to rise up and allow us entry. As we step inside, Gear walks back to the depot and leaves his spear behind, He then escorts me and his fellow wolf back to my room. We all step inside and I've removed my cloak hanging up on the adjacent wall hanger. The two wolves look beat and I can only imagine that they must have had some serious roughhousing while trying to stop the ongoing fights. Brian, I'm gonna suggest that you try your best at getting some sleep. Gear here will be by in the early mornings to collect you and escort you to Heim's residence. He'll probably have quite a lot in store for you tomorrow, once you've had a chance to tour the facility. You got it. Honestly, I know I probably didn't get up to half as much as what you guys got entangled with, but I am absolutely shattered. I can't stop myself from letting out a yawn, and like clockwork, the others soon join me. Calder then stretches and makes his way out of the door. Good night, Brian. I'm gonna take a trip to the baths before I go to bed. You fancy joining me, Gear? As he says that, he has already begun walking down towards the hallway. I think I'm gonna have to keep a much closer eye on you, human. You do best to remember that. He takes his helmet off so that he can look me straight in the eyes. After getting a nervous gulp out of me, he gives me a small smile. He then turns and begins to follow after the larger wolf. Right behind you, Your Highness. With those two now officially gone, I close the door. I need to figure out how I can get access to that library. Caldor mentioned those books in the study. What if one just happened to go missing? One that I want to read? That should be reason enough to visit the library. After all, who'd deprive a scholar of the right to knowledge? As I pace around the room, I trip over some furniture that I failed to notice before and fall to the floor. Ah, damn it. With the new angle, I take a look around my room. My eyes settle on the vast set of cupboards that I could potentially hide the book within. No, that's just stupid. Brian, if someone checks this room and finds it, it'll only raise suspicions. As I look away, my head falls back and I focus on the windows overlooking the back end of the castle. I can't just toss it out the window. Someone could find it easily and return it. I don't want to imagine what kind of questions they'd ask. I sigh as I slowly sit up, my pride still sore from the fall. However, it's quickly forgotten as my eyes settle on the mantel, a light bulb going off in my mind. Upon arriving in this room, I failed to notice the fireplace that decorated the living room, and sat slightly above it was a piece of flint and a striker. I rush upstairs to grab one of the books out of the private study. As I inspect the shelf, I see that it holds many kinds of books, including one anthology. I slide out the third volume from the set and rush back downstairs to toss it into the fireplace. Once I do, I swipe the kit and strike the flint until a spark goes off, quickly setting the dried wood alight. Yeah, this should be enough. Satisfied, I step away from the fire and sprawl out on the settee behind me. Once I find a comfortable position, it doesn't take long before I fall fast asleep. As the night passes, I'm awoken from my slumber by the sounds of knocking on my door. I get up and walk over to it, and find that standing outside is the ever-loyal guard, Gear. I open the door and allow him to step in. He walks right past me and sets a tray of food down on the counter. He takes a second to lift off his mask, and I watch him chuck it over to a nearby table. Before you freak out, we have got time for you to get ready. I'm only here early just to make sure that you've prepared, and at Calder's insistence, bring you some breakfast. He makes his way over to the couch and takes a seat. I look over at the counter and see that today's breakfast consists of bread and some sliced cooked meats. With me being in the mood for a sandwich, I head over to it and begin to craft one. I take it over to the free chair and sit down to eat. He looks over and nods approvingly at the style in which I have chosen to eat my breakfast, and we sit in a comfortable silence until I've finished. Sorry if I'm causing you any unnecessary running around. I can't imagine that it's the most entertaining thing in the world to do. It certainly isn't the worst fate imaginable. At least by watching you, I actually have a chance to stay home for once. Oh yeah? I heard that you were away on a mission. I take it that's something that happens very frequently? Every other week with how everything is gone tits up. What are these missions like? Just because I'm early doesn't mean that we have all the time in the world. You might want to consider taking a shower before we rush off to Heim's. I sense it's something that he doesn't want to discuss with me, So I agreed to his advice and quickly head upstairs to get cleaned. Before I knew it, I was redressed and out the door with the soldier, heading down towards the castle gate. We end up walking in silence. I can tell that yesterday he was only as expressive as he was due to Calder's presence. The walk itself was a perfect example for me to see the truly stoic side of gear, where I learned firsthand that the mask being down means complete focus. As we finally make our way through the busy city streets, with the occasional citizens gawking at my appearance, I'm taken to a much quieter strip of the road. We stroll past most of the houses before finally setting our sights on a long building at the back of the strip. As we finally get down there, Gear escorts me to the door and gives it a modest knock. Not long after, Heim opens the door for us. "You're on time. Good job, Gear. Thank you for ensuring that." He simply nods and stands at the side to allow me to walk inside. "I'll signal you on when to return to pick up the human. Dismissed." As the door closes, Heim soon approaches me. "How about we start with the tour?" Sounds like a perfect idea to me. When do we start? Because if I have any say, I would love to have a look at how you managed to produce any energy source that powers the lighting. How about I start with something a little more bold? He instructs me to stand with him on a viewing platform. Looking out from it, I see a divot in the flooring. In it sits a wooden marvel of a boat. Its unique painting and metallic embezzlements did much to catch my eye. "Frode, we're testing the ship again." As he says this, the boat behind him begins to shake slightly. After everything I've seen, I find it surprising that this would be more interesting than a medieval society with an energy source. My thoughts, however, are immediately blown to the back of my mind. What I presume to be the shields on the other side of the boat shift and the outer circle begins to glow blue. It slowly but surely lifts into the air. I rub my eyes furiously, baffled by what I am seeing. Before I have a chance to question it, Heim steps over rather smugly. To be continued. Oof, finally. That was the second build. I can't say chapter because it wasn't really a chapter, it was just the second build of Cleaved. Again, I didn't really see what changed from the beginning, but I do get a sense that the main character, Brynn, and I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing his name correctly this time around because I think I pronounced it Baron the first time. Um, but he is more his own character who wants to be useful, who is curious, who wants to ask questions, who isn't just sort of like a stand-in for the reader, which is very, very good. Because honestly, that would make the story 10 times more boring. Not that it's boring, but it would make the story just a little less exciting. Yeah, let's put it that way. I'm not saying it's boring. Anyways, but yeah. I'm getting the sense that the whole society, as you see it right here on the main screen where you have the castle and you have like a little village surrounding the castle, but then you have another gate, and then you have a village surrounding that, and then you have another gate surrounding that is surrounded by yet more village, and then even farther from that you have something. So my guess is that each level, because it kind of even looks sloped, so each level denotes in a way societal status, and I'm assuming that Fraser and his dads live on the outer, area. The village itself where you were right now, when you were getting your clothes, when you were caught, when you found Fraser, or when Fraser found you, is the one in the middle, and everything else is, the castle. Or at least, royalty and the council and everyone else. All the important people. So my guess is that at least in some part we're gonna be getting a taste of classism, where while hanging out with Frasier, you might experience a bit of the classism that, or the character might be noticing some of the classism between like the different levels, where the people on the outer edges and even everywhere else outside of the kingdom don't really live as good a life as Caldor thinks that they do. I'm assuming that Caldor, being well-traveled, because apparently he did travel, he wants to bring a bit of what he learned to his kingdom. But of course, having a council and maybe even the uncle eventually will make that harder to do. And then, being that he has a legacy to uphold or whatever, he's gonna have to, fight between wanting to improve things for everyone and just, status quo stuff, etc., etc. I'm guessing right now. What else? Kind of cute, you have the gay dads, the dilfs. What else? Curious to learn more about Frasier, curious to learn about Caldor, about his two friends. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing everyone's names wrong, but like, these are all like Swedish, I think, like Swedish Scandinavian names. My English and Spanish did not prepare me for pronouncing Northern European names, or Northeastern European names. I don't know what it would be called, but like, I had to Google it, and like, my mind cannot process how to pronounce the chubby wolf's name, because it's not pronounced the way it looks. But yeah, anyways. Also a lot of characters being introduced, which is making it very difficult to read. I'm like, okay, you have to make up a voice that sounds different from everyone else, but like, I can't. I have a very limited range. And I don't know yet if I will be able to get Bear to do the voice of Caldor again, because he is very busy now, especially because I think that they will be moving around the time that this is being edited. So probably not able to get him to sit down and record like 2 hours worth of dialogue. Well, actually less, because he's only doing one character and I'm doing everything else. But yeah, anyways. I mean, maybe I could get Orion to voice Frasier. That would be nice. But like, I don't want to impose on them too much anyways. So you get what you get. Live with it. Anyways, but yeah, so, write down in the comments what you think so far of Cleaved. And if you have read or have seen someone else who has done the first part, if you've gone to someone else's channel and viewed their videos and seen, the revamped, first part of Cleaved on their channel, if you spot any differences between what I read and what they read, then, write it down in the comments. And thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Cleaved yourself or stay up to date with it, you can do so by going down into the link in the description for Cleaved's Twitter page, where you can get the direct link to downloading it from itch.io, or sometimes when they post updates about what's happening. I know this update took a long while because stuff happened with the creator's family. So, stuff happens, things get delayed, stuff happens. I think that there's also some missing assets, like particularly the CG at the end, where, you see the boat. And I think maybe some other stuff is also missing, but because originally it was supposed to release in September, I think, so they're like, yeah, let's just release what we have now. But yeah, it's enough. Like, you don't actually have to see all the other characters because they're not that important yet. Like, Haim is the only one that you're going to spend time with, so it would matter if he has a character, but like all the other ones, not really. What else? What else? What was I saying? Oh yeah, I will also post a link down if they have some sort of support, like Patreon or Coffee. I think they had a Coffee where you could... Am I confusing this with someone else? No, I'm confusing this with someone else. If they have some form of support, then I will post that down in the description. Otherwise, everything else will be down there, including my coffee in case you want to donate to me because you like my videos and you want to support me. Or if you want to support me through the channel memberships, I will also, you know, there will be a link down in the description if you don't see the little button that says join. But if you do join, you will get a little badge by your name that denotes that you are a channel member, and it changes color depending on how many months you've been a member. You will also get access to the little, they call them emojis, but like, are they really emojis? Because we're gonna use them like stickers. But yeah, everyone, you know, regardless of the tier that you subscribe to, will have access to that. And for the little emojis, you have to do the little, it's the key that has a little 2 period things. The one on top of the other, I forget what it's called. Like, you press that and then you write yin, I think. And then, like, it will try to autofill depending on what you want. So it'll be like a drop-down thing. Like, you'll see them right there. Just look for them. It's the little thing right there. Use them. But yeah, also, you know, these are the current subscribers. I'm putting their names on the screen right now. In the middle is me, my little avatar dancing, because I have nothing else to do this right now. And yeah, for tier 1, you know, you'll have your name on here, but for tier 2, you get early access to videos that would normally be scheduled, like this one. This is going to be for members first, and then eventually it will be for everyone else, the public. So yeah, you know, yay. But yeah, so I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.